In an election year, of course, everyone behaves rather like a doctor, finding, what's wrong with the patient America and sort of suggesting remedies and so on. And everyone talks about the malaise, and there are many symptoms of it. Do you think that things like the cities or the attitude to the war or the race question, do you think these are the malaise, or do you think they're symptoms of something deeper that's got to be put right?
I think it's deeper. I think those are symptoms of it. I think it's really sort of involves the national purpose, almost the soul of the country. And I think it's involved also to some extent in the tremendous material wealth we have in the United States and what you're going to do with it and how it's going to be utilized. Also the tremendous military wealth or power that we have, and the fact that we're involved in this terribly difficult struggle and we don't quite know what to make of it. There are these eruptions that you mentioned that happen or occur because of all of that. And I think it really comes down to really the national purpose of what we're trying to accomplish and what is up at the top that's giving us some direction or some leadership and perhaps a lack of confidence in all of that.
And if things go according to plan, say by next January, when you become president, what sort of initiatives, what sort of things could you do about this deeper problem?
I think that we are in a difficult period of time, and what you would try to do is to bring forth those marvelous characteristics. I think President Kennedy did it to some extent, for instance, during the establishment of the Peace Corps. There you had tens of thousands of young people and older people as well, willing to give up their lives, give up their homes, give up their comfort, and go all over the world in order to help others. I think that's really characteristic of the United States.
Was there something, in fact, that you mentioned President Kennedy, that he taught you about the scope of how much, the potentialities of the presidency? I mean, in a sense, what you're saying is that it's got more potential than's being realized.
Well, I think that's true, and it goes beyond sort of specific pieces of legislation. You know, an awful lot of legislation can be passed, but you start arguing about what housing bill is better than another housing bill, or what job program, manpower training program is better than another manpower. People get lost with all of that, and understandably, they can't keep up with all the things that are happening in their own community, let alone what is happening at the federal level and the legislation that is being passed. But the presidency is something far beyond that. It's not that you're going to agree with the president on every issue, for instance. There's going to be tremendous disagreement. But the fact that it's giving the country some direction, and there's somebody that you feel that's looking out for your own interests, not in a selfish way, and more and beyond that, the interest of the country and the interest of the next generation.
Senator Kennedy, wherever I go in America, people always say to me that this is so-and-so, but this isn't the real America. If you had to pick one place, where would you point to and say that to you this was the real America?
Well, I think it's probably difficult. If you ask me for a specific place, I think perhaps smaller towns are upstate New York, Iowa, but I suppose there are a lot of different communities. I think once you get away from maybe the large urban centers where life is a little bit more frantic, I think you might see more about the understanding and the courage and the compassion of people.
Some people define an election year as a year in which people are trying to find out what the electorate are hoping for and what they're frightened of, that it's to do with hope and fear. What would you say is most Americans' main fear and main hope at this moment?
Well, I think really it's a hope for a national purpose, and I think that sounds general. But I really think that that's a recapturing of the purpose of the country and the direction of the country. I think that's what it is fundamentally. The end of divisions within the country. Not the end, because we can never end them, but I mean to escape from the bitterness and the hatred that exists to a greater extent in the United States than perhaps it has for a number of generations, and to give us some national purpose and restore the soul of the country. Now, what was the other question?
The fear.
The fear that we won't.
But what is, national purpose is another thing that's terribly difficult to define.
I know, and I think that a lot of it's, as I say, we have this tremendous gross national product, we have this tremendous wealth, the economy is going up fantastically high, the individual is making much more money, and what does it all mean once we have it? If children and parents are becoming alienated from one another, if there's greater bitterness between blacks and whites, as there is now, and if we're very bitter and over the war in Vietnam, then you wonder just what direction you're going in and what this all means.
But basically, you just say that it, in a sense, lost direction, really.
I just think we can do much, much better, this country, and I don't want to continue like we have over the period of the last few years. I don't believe the American people do. I think we want to turn a corner, and I don't think we can at the moment.
Do you believe in the principle, my country, right or wrong?
No, I think that one has this affection or feeling for its country, but I think of what Camus said during the war with Algeria, that my criticism comes because I want to love my country in justice. And I think that's what we want. We want to have this affection and feeling for our country in justice.
I was going to the big question of and this is a huge one, but very basic in a way. What would you say at root that people are on Earth for?
I think basically to make a contribution to some others who are less well off. Saying that I complained because I had no shoes until I met a man who had no feet. You can always find someone that has a more difficult time than you do, suffers more, and faces a more difficult time, one way or another. And I think in the last analysis, if you have made some contribution to someone else to improve their life and make their life a little bit more livable, a little bit more happy, I think that that's what you should be doing.
Yes. How would you like to be remembered? I mean, what would you like the first line of a history book about Robert Kennedy to say?
I think something about the fact that I made some contribution to either my country or those who were less well off. I think again back to what Camus wrote about the fact that perhaps this world is a world in which children suffer, but we can lessen the number of suffering children. And if you do not do this, then who will do this? And I'd like to feel that I'd done something to lessen that suffering.